I've improved by a whole grade.
I've improved.
By a whole grade.
By a whole grade.
By a whole grade.
My teacher isn't just Mr. Maddock. It's a whole teaching team made up of James, Mike and Marta.
My classroom's all about doing and applying. My days standing at the front of the classroom with a PowerPoint are long gone.
I master every concept by learning at my own pace.
I spend 100% of my class time interacting and supporting individual students.
I move on only when the moment is right for me, not the whole class.
I know what each and every student is mastering and struggling on at every moment.
I know exactly what I need to learn next, and I can go back and review material at any time.
I spend my teaching time supporting and inspiring, not planning, delivering and marking.
I can learn from anywhere at any time.
I can switch off when school closes, knowing they are learning from the best.
My teacher has my homework marked before I get to class.
I set every piece of homework at the start of the year.
I'm 2 weeks ahead of my expected progress.
I can track everyone's progress with a swipe of a finger.
I can track my own progress and set my own targets.
I now have time to focus on developing the skills of every learner in my classroom.
I know exactly what it means to explain, evaluate and analyse, and I'm not afraid of any exam.
My lessons are now far more about the skills and the application, not just the content itself.
I've completely remodeled what it means to be a teacher in my classroom.
Hello, this is James at the EverLearner. Thank you for joining us. This document you see in front of you is really just a bringing together of key information related to a range of courses. The document is entirely live, and what we mean by that is we're going to subsequently add new courses to this as we analyse them, as new courses become available, as new courses come to our attention. We're going to add those courses onto here for colleagues to be able to have a look at what's available and make some decisions based on course availability. So let me just take you through what we've done here. I think a lot of it will be pretty familiar. Some things may be new to people. So along our columns here, we have a range of courses ranging from GCSEs. These are all Key Stage 4 courses, by the way, ranging from GCSEs through to vocational courses. A couple more we're going to add in the imminent period. And what we've done here is we've basically addressed a series of variables in the rows here to start to analyse what the details of these courses are. So I guess a good place to start would be here with the overview. We have taken, for example, all of our GCSEs, which take us all the way to that group there, and we have given a breakdown of theory weighting, practical weighting, coursework weighting, and so on. Now, we've also gone a little bit further, and we've established whether the course fits into a Progress 8 and therefore an Attainment 8 score, and in all cases in this particular scenario, we have all of these courses fitting into bucket 3, the open bucket. Okay, so it's quite possible here to start to think about course offerings, how a department might provide a balanced course offer, maybe with a range of courses across the department. Now, again, we've broken down, once we've had a look at the overview here, which we show the trend of the course nationally, whether it fits into Progress 8, the theory, practical and coursework weighting, we look specifically at exams. And I think it becomes really interesting here. Okay, so what we've tried to do here is we've tried to initially give details of the first and, where relevant, the second exam which is available on a particular course. If we just make a very simple comparison, if we look at OCR 1 to 9, for example, and we look at both of the exams, paper 1, physical factors, and paper 2, social, cultural and sports psychology, they contribute 30% each to the qualification, and we can see here the number of marks and the amount of time that's available. If we compare that, say, to our VCERT course, we get a different scenario. We have one paper, we have 40% contribution of marks, and we have a different number of marks available over a different amount of time with a different amount of marks per minute. Okay, so we've tried to assess, or at least we've tried to analyse the different components that make a qualification, either its dynamics, how challenging is it, what is the exam experience going to be like. A couple of things I'd really draw your attention to. we have addressed here raw marks per minute on exams. So effectively made a very simple division here, and that is the total number of marks, which is divided by the total number of minutes, and therefore you get a reading of how many marks per minute are required on each of these exams. And it depends on how you want to interpret that. So you might be really happy to see that students on AQA GCSE P1 to 9 have to score over 1 mark per minute, or you might be terrified by that. Here, where you see, for example, on the BTEC Tech Award in Sport Activity and Fitness, they're only required to do 0.78 marks per minute. You might see that as a really positive thing. It might feel more accessible. Equally, you might feel it's not challenging enough. Okay, so it's for you guys to interpret how you see that. A couple of other things we've noticed here. Multiple choice questions and how that features on exam papers. Again, you may have positive and negative views on that. My personal views at Key Stage 4, it's a negative thing. I don't like those questions. That's just my personal opinion. And here we've got number of raw marks from extended answer questions. Okay, so again, if we were to compare all of our GCSE courses, we get a different picture across that profile. If we were to compare, for example, our vocational courses, we notice something like VCERT, for example, has a really substantial leveled element to it, with the top mark being marked out of 9. You know, that is a fairly challenging environment. That compares quite closely to, for example, to AQA GCSE, say. Okay, so it feels robust. It's given us an impression of that course. As I said before, we've got the highest number of marks, highest number of raw marks for an individual question is available on here. The highest that we've got here featuring on DWJC and EDUCAS GCSEs, and we've got some others at 9s, lots of 8s as well, so you can get a feel for that. And then you've got the timing of the exams. I think this is an interesting row because, again, if you're looking at a combined course offer, let's say for argument's sake, you're looking at combining an EdXL GCSE PE with something like an NCFE VCERT, you know, you can see the timing and the scheduling of those assessments is really quite different. Is that a positive thing for you? Can you have different focuses across different parts of the year? So we've included that information on exams, and hopefully it's going to give you a nice insight. Next, we've looked at practical performance, okay? So practical performance, we literally mean a practical in the sense that sports are being performed, okay? So that would be someone doing a tennis assessment, someone doing a mountain walking activity for assessment, and so on. So that's what we mean by practical performance. So again, here we've got a number of sporting activities assessed. We're giving you an indication. The one that's kind of a strange one is the OCR National Sports Studies, which in Unit 2, a mandatory unit, the students do have to participate in sport, but they're not directly assessed in that sport. They're assessed on the project that goes with their performance in that sport. So we try to detail that for you in here. You also see that the IGCSE courses, they are the only ones that retain the 4 activity profile, which we used to have in GCSEs. All the other GCSEs are consistent with 3. And then you can see that we've got 0 practical performance assessments in a range of vocational courses here. Now, again, I come back to an interesting point there, which is, if that is the case, would it be fair to say then that a good idea here would be considering, can we find an appropriate combination of a GCSE and a vocational course that is going to be offered across the department if sort of cohort numbers allow that to be a possibility? I think that's an interesting question to answer. We've also looked at the nature of practical performance moderation, so whether it's centre specific, it's a cluster-based moderation, which is common with OCR, for example, or if it's a video-only moderation, or indeed if there's no moderation at all. And finally, and perhaps really importantly again in this area, we've got here the idea of what video recording is required by your department. So if you think about especially if you've got a cohort of tens of students at GCSEP, for example, it could potentially have quite a big implication for you how many times you have to produce video evidence. So we've tried to detail that for you. You're going to find relative consistency across the GCSEs, and then you're going to find, broadly speaking, across the vocation, there's no filming required. Again, does that suggest that combining qualifications might be a good idea? Into our coursework section here, we've got raw marks for the coursework piece up here. On a lot of our vocational courses, that's not applicable because they're structured around the past merit distinction assessment criteria. And then what we've got here is we've done a write-up of the nature of the coursework. So again, if you're looking at comparing GCSEs, that's a really useful thing for you. What is the experience going to be? And finally, we've got the title of the written or oral coursework, and that's there. Just bear in mind that on our vocational courses, the titles of the units are all included in the descriptions here. Finally, if we go right to the top of the sheet, which I hope you're going to spend some time looking over and analysing, what we've done right at the top here is we've given advice as to whether, from our independent and completely unbiased as is humanly possible perspective, what we would guide you on with regard to what your next step could be. Now, we do appreciate that in many schools the freedom of choice is not entirely there, and you can't just make a sort of a carte blanche decision, I'm going to do A, B, C. But if you do have a say in which courses are offered within your department, assuming that for a second, this would be our guidance to you. So we've basically got a four-point sliding scale here. So if I just click here on AQA GCSEP, for example, these were the 4 options that we had. So the best one we could offer you is register for it. We think this is a valid course, it's relevant, go ahead. We've then got shortlist it, which is the second most positive judgment that we can make. It means, yeah, put it in the mix, really consider this one. Consider it is kind of like, we're not sure about it. It's okay, but we're not convinced. And reject it, which we have, by the way, haven't put in here for any of these qualifications, would be something which we outright don't believe is a good course offering centre. So I think one of the things that's positive here is we don't have a particularly negative view on any of these qualifications. I will draw your attention to, if you like, our grade 3 courses. Imagine using a pejorative 4-point scale for such things seems terribly inappropriate. Well, here, so the reason we've put consider it only for IGCSEs, for example, is it doesn't qualify for Progress 8. So for us, we obviously can't necessarily recommend that to you unless you're specifically in a supportive independent school or international school, which is going to support you in doing that course and isn't worried about its Attainment A score. Here on the WJC and EDUCAS courses, we only felt that we could go for consider it because of the range of resources that are available to support it. Just bear in mind, obviously, that if you're a school based in Wales, the WJC GCSEP is the only one that you may take. So, of course, that's something you need to be aware of. So our guidance has been qualified each time with a little note as to why we think that. And we're going to provide much more information and data about our judgments of these courses over a period of time. In fact, we are ultimately going to provide each of these courses with what we call a TEL score, a score out of 100 on 10 different out of 10 criteria for these qualifications. Okay, so we're going to give a lot more detail on why we think that. But for now, I encourage you to have a look at this. I encourage you to take information away from it. I encourage you to revisit it at different times, because in my opinion, it's a really useful document to have available to you as you move through managing the department, looking at the prospective and projected courses that you might offer. Now, I want to finish off with, I don't know if this is a fair thing to say, really, but someone actually asked me this on the phone. He said, if you had a completely free choice, James, which of those courses would you go for in your department? Now, it's a hard question to answer because, of course, all departments are different, right? You've got to be realistic and think that the dynamics within a particular school are different to the others. So if I was to have a completely free choice, and obviously I'm not advising this with regard to you guys in your school, just giving you my feedback. My personal choice, if I was applying courses for students of mine right now, is I would choose the EdExcel GCSEP 1-9, and I would combine it with the NCFE VCERT Health and Fitness Technical Award. And that's the Level 1 and 2 Technical Award. And the reasons that I would do that, I like the breadth of the EdExcel 1-9. It's not perfect, let's be honest, but I like the theory breadth in it. I like the fact that they haven't watered it down as much as some of the other exam boards have, most notably OCR. I think the range of resources available at EdExcel is also very good. And I think their history with the coursework and, broadly speaking, with the practical is good enough that I feel I could, give that a really good go, and my efforts and my students' efforts would likely be rewarded. Okay, so obviously there's different cases, but those would be my broad feelings on the 9-1. I mean, I also like the fact it's split into 2 exams. I also like the fact that, if you like, the physiologically bit gets a bit more weighting, because of course when the students potentially go on to, say, an A-level, which I know not all will, but some will, but when they do, of course, our Key Stage 5 courses, broadly speaking, are quite science heavy. So I do think that supports them well. On the VCERTS side, and again, we're going to do much deeper comparisons here, but on the VCERTS side, the reason I like that course is because it provides an alternative to the GCSE. So here, for example, we've effectively got a 40-60 split course, 40% on the theory, 60%, let's call it, on the coursework or the project, and the project is synoptic. Okay, and I'll take you down to the project so you can have a little look at it. I personally think this is really exciting. So it works like this. The students are marked out of 120 and they do a written project relating to a student investigating and writing a fitness development program for a client. So basically it's a personal trainer experience. The student takes on the role of a personal trainer for a client. Theory learning is assimilated through the project, preparing and planning for health and fitness. And what I like about it is, if I'm working with students in a department and I've got students who are, a really good practical performers, I may well steer them towards the GCSE because they're going to get credit for that. If I've got students in my department who are maybe a performance level not as strong, but they're grinders, they'll work over a period of time, they're good theory learners, they're good writers, I think the NCFE VCERT course is a really, really good option. Now, I know some people will lean in other directions towards BTECs, OCR Nationals. That's fine. Obviously, that's people's choice. I mean, do whatever you want to do. But we just wanted to provide this information for you. And my overall sort of conclusion with it was I do like the EdXL and the AQA GCSEs. This is my personal opinion. I'm not a massive fan of the OCR GCSE. I feel it's too narrow, especially on the theory content. And I do like the NCFE VCERT Health and Fitness course. So those would just be James's kind of thoughts on it. But, take those with a pinch of salt. You have to apply this information in your context and make sure it's right for you. So I want to sign off there. Please use this document, download it, print it, do whatever you want to do with it. Please also, if you'd like us to add a column for a new course on here, so someone's already asked me for a new course edition on this, but if there's something in particular you want us to have a look at and to analyse and we can add on to this document, just let us know. We'll also be adding in time Key Stage 5 qualifications as well. And don't forget to look out for our additional TEL score analyses and our comparison live shows coming up.
I've improved by a whole grade.
I've improved.
Improve.
Improved.
By a whole grade.
By a whole grade.
By a whole grade.
My teacher isn't just Mr. Maddock. It's a whole teaching team made up of James, Mike and Marta.
My classroom's all about doing and applying. My days standing at the front of the classroom with a PowerPoint are long gone.
I master every concept by learning at my own pace.
I spend 100% of my class time interacting and supporting individual students.
I move on only when the moment is right for me, not the whole class.
I know what each and every student is mastering and struggling on at every moment.
I know exactly what I need to learn next, and I can go back and review material at any time.
I spend my teaching time supporting and inspiring, not planning, delivering and marking.
I can learn from anywhere at any time.
I can switch off when school closes, knowing they are learning from the best.
My teacher has my homework marked before I get to class.
I set every piece of homework at the start of the year.
I'm 2 weeks ahead of my expected progress.
I can track everyone's progress with a swipe of a finger.
I can track my own progress and set my own targets.
I now have time to focus on developing the skills of every learner in my classroom.
I know exactly what it means to explain, evaluate and analyse, and I'm not afraid of any exam.
My lessons are now far more about the skills and the application, not just the content itself.
I've completely remodeled what it means to be a teacher in my classroom.